Good afternoon from beautiful Brisbane, Australia, and welcome to Complex PTSD TV. My name's Linda. I'm your certified trauma recovery coach, and welcome to the channel. If you're here for the first time, feel free to join in with our global community, and if you're here for the second time, welcome. It's been great to interact with a lot of you in the comments, and it's been my pure heart's joy to hear from a number of you over the past week how you've now decided to seek help professionally for your complex trauma, which is just wonderful. It does my heart good, because the one reason I do what I do is so that you never have to go through what I went through ever, like losing your whole life. And so to know that all the information helps. Now today, we've got something really special today. I was asked, would I do a video on parenting children? So in particular, parenting teenagers, and from the perspective where I had undiagnosed complex trauma, how did I raise my kids? So I went, you know what? I need to ask the kids what worked for them. What about me as a parent worked for them? Because then you know what will work for your kids, because they've all grown into beautiful, beautiful adults who can be vulnerable about what's happening for them and where they need help. And that's more important than being right. It's more important than, I'm in charge, this is how it is. So I went to them, they all answered, and g'day Claire, and then I'm going to share with you their very personal responses, and I'm going to share with you how I went about changing things up for the first generation. So if you're an adult now, we're the first generation to address our trauma with the scientific information we have, and we're also the first generation that gets to change how we raise our children and how we go about helping them become and increasingly aware and healing throughout their journey as well, be able to heal throughout their journey. So from my youngest son, who's now 21, Nick, he said for him, the priority was communicate, communicate, communicate. So don't stop communicating. So for me, how did that unfold when I went through life where there was no adult-child communication at all? It was particular that I always spoke through processes with Nick. I always talked about how I was feeling, and I don't mean how I'm feeling trauma-wise, I mean how I'm feeling in relation to his behaviour. So how that was impacting me and how I needed to work out what do you need, and I can't do that without you telling me what's happening internally. And there's no yelling. Okay, it has to be as teenagers, and especially for boys, I found, well, boys like Nick's really strong internally but very sensitive. So I found I had to be very gentle and I had to be very aware of my tone of voice. I wasn't always successful at it, but these were building blocks. And then as we went on, and for Nick, the communication was key because he experienced abuse from men in his life, and I discovered when he was a teenager in grade 11 that he was suicidal. So without that communication happening, then I would not have known that he was suicidal, okay? And I wouldn't have known how to start negotiating that either. So for him, the communication's been vital too, because even now as an adult and we share similar space, then I can say to him, look, how you're perceiving me, that's not what's happening internally for me. So we as parents have got to know what's happening internally for us, because to lie to our children means that it sets up a whole range of dynamics in them that are not healthy either. So back when Chloe, Nick and I lived together when they were at high school, at the end of the day, I would be extremely tired. So I'd gone to college to do my counselling diploma, and I would get home, and we know with mental health that when we start engaging in learning, it is very tiring. So I would get home and try and do dinner, and I'd be grumpy and not realise it, because I'm not grumpy at them. I'm just exhausted trying to get my thought processes to connect. Okay, how do I do this? What do I do? Because remember, I lost all my memory as well. Until one day, one of them said to me, "Mum, are you angry at us?" And I got the shock of my life. And I was like, "No, why? What makes you say that?" They said, "Every night when you cook dinner, you're angry." And I went, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry." So if our children don't know how to label their emotions, it's the first place to start for all of us. So when my kids were really little, I would always talk to them, "Are you feeling this? How's that feel? What's that?" And give them language. And I actually learned a lot of my emotional language raising the kids because I had to work it out, right? So we've come from generations where we didn't talk about emotions. There's a whole lot of non-verbal and verbal family history for us, and so we have to work it out. And with our kids, we start working it out. And then when they get to teenagehood, then they realise that they can communicate. So the communication was vital for Nick and continues to be, and the communication allows Nick and I to go as adults now, and it allows Nick to say, "Is this what's happening for you?" or "This is what's happening for him." And even the other night, it was a massive week mentally. And we went and did our grocery shopping together. And then we went to get our Friday night treat for dinner. And he said, "Mum, how are you feeling?" And I'm just sitting in the car going, I don't know. And he said, "So you tired?" And I went, "Oh yeah, that'd be the word." Do you know what I mean? It's never about that's what you are or that's what I am. It's we work together through our mental health challenges. Okay, we're very considerate of each other through our mental health challenges, and he's taught me a lot as an adult too, to how to be considerate of him, because part of complex PTSD is the lack of social skills. Okay, I didn't even know I had none, but I had none. Okay. And my kids have taught me a lot, Nick in particular, because he came home from living out of home, and then we've had to learn how to have those discussions. So building into the space where you can be real and raw and honest with each other and genuine about the emotions that you're feeling is a good space. And you've got to know what you're feeling and what's happening for you until you get a 20-year-old son that says, "Oh yeah, are you tired? Oh yeah, okay." Okay, and for Josh, so Josh had 5 things that for him, for me as a parent, he said communication, discipline, organisation, routine, and understanding. So with Josh, now you've got to remember, we're all on the spectrum. And for most of my life, I didn't know that Chloe and I were. So I knew the boys were. So we did have organisation, and we always had a routine. The routine was good for them because I could rely on the routine to say, "Okay, these are the things that you've got to get done in the morning before school." So you've got to get your breakfast, get your lunch, have your room neat and tidy, and make sure your homework's finished, your bag's packed for school. And once all that's done, then you can watch the cartoons, you can play on your computer, you could do whatever you wanted as long as you were ready to walk out the door when it was time to leave for school. Okay, so it becomes like choice and consequence. And you know what? When I did that, every morning without fail, they would get up and they would do those things that needed to be done, and they'd go and relax till it was time to go to school. And it made them personally responsible for the choices they were making. It meant that I didn't have to be going on and on and on every morning, because back then, especially with the lack of memory that I had, it was very challenging when I first started being able to take them back to school. So I had to get creative in how I parented in order that I wasn't taking my stuff or my lack of abilities that, hadn't yet returned and my frustrations out on them. So a lot of my parenting techniques come from sitting down and thinking about how can I go about this in a creative manner. And one of the things I did, and this was years before I lost all of my ability, this is when the kids were really young. Josh and Nick were very young and sharing a room, and they'd go to bed and they'd play up. And one night, like yelling at kids repeatedly or repeating yourself, even if it's not yelling, is just pointless. And I went, I need to be able to immerse them in a situation so they understand what I'm saying. So I got the two of them out of bed and said, come on, come with me, and put the outside light on. And I took them outside and I said, okay, go play. You go play until you're ready to go to bed. Just go. Nick looked at me, he was all of 4, I bet, and just goes, and knew what I was on about. And he just went straight back to bed. And then not a word. And then Josh went to play, and then he went, oh yeah, it's nighttime, isn't it? It is nighttime out here. And then he went, oh, it's like something clicked in him, and he went off back to bed. And you know what? Barely ever again did I have a problem, okay? Barely. It was just like immersing them in that experience, that it was dark, it was night, and it wasn't playtime. So I often found ways to be creative. The routine was vital, all right? The routine was vital so that they knew where everyone was at. Because we were a family of either 4 or 5, depending on the situation, the routine meant that they were able to say, right, this is what happens at this time, and that gave them safety, surety, and they knew what their role was in the household as well. And organisation. It was to be organised was good, and what I did from a really young age was get them involved in what was happening around the house. So if I was running behind time and I needed help hanging clothes, we all got involved. If the house needed to be cleaned, we all got involved, and the kids grew up knowing that we're in this together. Okay, so it wasn't a case of me sit down, oh, you have to go clean the bathroom. All of us would literally go clean the bathroom, okay? Or we'd all get in and do whatever it was that was needed. So they grew up with a cohesive model of we all do this together, whatever needs to be done. Then we all get to sit down and enjoy or go out and do whatever needs to be done. And to that day, to this day, when something happens and things need to be done, the kids have said to me, no, Mum, you don't do that on your own. We all do this together. We're all in it together. So that's been helpful as well. Josh and I in communication have been a very interesting challenge. When Josh will tell you, he was more like his dad, okay? So I had to be very firm with him. I had to be very, no, Josh, the look on your face is saying this and this is what's happening internally. And now as an adult we laugh about it, but back then it was stressful because we had to keep addressing the situations that arose, and we had to keep addressing what was happening for him internally. But the good thing was, as he grew into adulthood, he then began to be able to own what was happening for him internally. And if they can do that, they grow into a responsible adult. It's when adults continually ignore the emotions and ignore what's happening for them as an individual internally that it creates so many problems down the road, okay? So because of our family history, there was always going to be the mental health challenges, but how we go about that and how we change it up for the next generation when they have kids means that we've got a good platform from me down and from them down, and they will parent their children. So I raise them to know that I expect that they take the good things from my parenting, throw the rest out. I said there'll be new information about parenting when they become parents. I said, and I want you to use that. And I want you to pass that on to your kids. Take what works, throw the rest out, use what's new and good as well. That's healthy. And that way, it's not a case of we're right or wrong about parenting. Yes, we're doing everything we can. And as they grow into adulthood, they still want to know who I am as an adult, and obviously vice versa, but they go off and have their own adventures, okay? Now from Chloe, she was a bit more specific. When I asked her to write, now Chloe's travelled overseas a number of times. She's currently been married for a year, living overseas, and about to have her first baby. And what she wanted above and beyond everything else was to be able to say to me, this is what worked for her. And she tells me now what actually worked for her as well and what she's going to use. Like she said to me, Mum, you used to take us grocery shopping and you say to us, right, if you behave at the end, there'll be a treat. If you don't behave, there'll be no treat. And she said, so we always behaved. And I went, oh, okay. It's the little things that they remember. So her first point was, first and most important was, you always gave us freedom to explore and fall, even if you knew something was a phase or wouldn't be beneficial in the long run. So we were able to learn more this way and know we had you to support us, watch over us, and not be so isolated if things got bad. And that's true. If they came to me and they wanted to do something, even if I was having my mother's, this is giving me heart failure, I can see the outcome of this isn't going to be good, I would never, ever put that on them. So I would never say to them, no, you can't do that. No, that's not wise. Chloe came to me once and said, oh, Mum, I don't think I'm going to have kids, and I think that I want to adopt. I went, okay. And she thought I'd be all upset about that. And I said, look, if that's what you want to do, then you have to go through the process. I said, if you never have kids of your own, that's okay. And I said, if you adopt, then they will be my grandchildren, okay? Being family, it doesn't come as an optional extra for me, all right? If we're family, we stick through this and we stick it through together and we work it out. So for her, that's just one thing. With Chloe, that's just one thing that we crossed, where I was, okay, so have you thought about this? And I would ask her questions. Had she thought about the different types of consequences that I could see of her decisions? And then I just let her go and work it out herself. I didn't ever say my opinion. I didn't ever say yes or no, don't do this. Obviously, if they wanted to bungee jump, I probably would have had heart failure, but I wouldn't have let them know too much about the heart failure. But I would have gone and supported them, okay, because they need to know that we'll be there no matter what. Through thick and thin, we're going to let them fall and we're going to be there to help pick them up and just love on them. And there's never an I told you so, because I didn't tell them so. I just said, you've got to go through the process and make these decisions. She said, you never kicked us out, shunned us, or made us feel ashamed, so we never resented you and distanced ourselves, because everyone needs a parent in the end, okay? I don't know where all of that came from, but I imagine she saw a lot of her teenage friends have that happen to them, okay? She said, you never forced us to live your dream, which made it easier for us to pursue our interests, and you even encouraged us with ideas of new things we could pursue. This definitely helped us with exploring the world more and knowing opportunities that we may not have thought of, okay? So if they come to you with an idea, go on an exploration of that idea with them and give them ideas, encourage them. And I'm always somebody who thinks about something out of the box. Oh, what about that? And a lot of the time, they may not have gone to the, oh, what about that stage? But it gave them something to think about. And having them think about things is really crucial. You don't want your kids to be raised as sheep who just follow the crowd. You want them to think for themselves. And I certainly never wanted them to live my dream either. You made yourself a safe space for us to run to, which I feel a lot of parents don't make for their kids, or they've not worked out how to. No matter how low I was in life, I still ran to you, and all the precious things help with that. Being a safe space for our kids means that they can sit and say what's happening for them. And we don't run over them with our words, with our experiences, with our insight, with our wisdom. We just listen, okay? I want to understand what's happening for you, because I'm not you. I'm not living your life. I'm not having the experiences you are. And even if I do have wisdom and insight, I need you to be able to think about things first and foremost, because I can't always be there as their mum. Like, she's in Indonesia and her life's changing. I can't be there, but I can know that I've given her the ability to think things through. Being safe means that they feel they can come and tell me when life gets really crap, okay? Josh has had a couple of things happen, and he's been able to come to me and say, look, Mum, this is what's really happened. I've stuffed up. And then I'm just here. And then I'm able to either sit with him while he works it through, offer suggestions or insights that he can think about. But at the end of the day, it's his choice what he does. And I'm very aware of that. And I think it's important for us, being the first generation with the information about complex trauma, that we do equip them to say, it's okay to stuff up. All right, we all stuff up. Heck, I've stuffed up. And at the end of the day, if we stuff up and we get up and we go, not just learn from it, but we understand what the impact is for us and where we're going, then we're going to be able to teach our kids that as well and say, look, if you stuff up, come home, let's sort it out. All right. And Chloe says, lastly, you never really shoved in our face the whole I'm older and no more, which is annoying from adults and distancing. Rather, you explain what could happen and open yourself for discussion rather than what I say is fact and final. We could actually communicate with you, which made you not only a great mother, but it kept everything friendly. So you were our friendly fun educator. So we can be the educator, but we do that in a way that is light and easy. And as the parent doing all of this, we have to be willing to own our own trauma responses. We have to be willing to say, I'm feeling really unsafe about this at the moment. And for me as a single parent, I carried a lot of it on my own, but I was okay because I had friends that if it got too much, I could talk to, talk things through, or I got professional help to talk things through. And I didn't take my trauma experiences and put them on my kids. I wanted my kids to have their own experiences and have their own life understanding. And I raised them that each of them were different. So each of them would have a different response, a different understanding, that each of them had different needs, okay? So Josh, I did a lot of work with over the years with emotional communication and understanding how to put things in order. Josh has gone on to seek male mentorship every week, male accountability, and learn a lot of things from men, okay? And we've done a lot of work in our relationship together, and now it's a joy, and we laugh about all the hard times we had. Parenting is not easy, okay? Even though I can give you this information, none of this process was easy because my brain hadn't had any of this programmed into it from a young age that this is how you parent. Rather, I had programmed into me how you don't parent. So my experiences were, we've got to talk about it, because in my family, we didn't talk about anything at all. I left home and my mother came to me and shut the bedroom door and said quietly, all these years I thought it was you, but I know now it's not, but shh, don't tell anyone. And I'm like, okay. And this is what it was. The kids spent so many years getting blamed, and the older generations were like, well, you're the one with the problem all the time. Whereas when you have a child, for me, it was like you see this endless world for them, these endless opportunities of who they are, And I always really carried in my heart that I just want you to know what love is. And love means I love you no matter what. Love means that we will get through this together no matter what, provided we're going to communicate all the way through it. Okay? So opening the doors to communication may not be easy, whatever situation you're in, whatever age your kids are, but opening that door is crucial to beginning to be able to get set on the pathway if we want to change how the generations go now for us in our own family home. And we also want to change so that your children and my grandchildren can then grow in the strength of love instead of having to be in families where we experience lovelessness. Okay? Where we experience that, for me, it was, oh, you're a teenager and you're being overly emotional, so you're a drama queen. It's like I'd write notes and put them under their pillow trying to explain to them, this is what I'm trying to say. And I needed feedback as a teenager. So I knew, you have a lot of unspoken rules of this is right, this is wrong. But as a teenager, I needed an adult willing to bounce things off, ideas, concepts, plans. But I wasn't treated that way. Went to the end of grade 11, and then my mum rang me from school just before grade 12 started and said, you're not going back to school. She rang me from work, okay? So I'm her daughter living in her home, and she rang me from work to tell me, you're not going back to school. You're going to go and study secretarial studies at TAFE. TAFE is, I think, like community college in America. And you'd be there for a year and then you're going to go off and get a job. So there was never any discussion. So I had no idea that in my own home, my own parents were thinking about this or talking about it or what they believed was best for me. Nothing. Just nothing. And my mum rang me from work. There's no connection. There's no understanding. There's no time for me to adjust. It was just, this is what you're doing and that's it. So it was a pretty crazy life, but it left me with, I want my kids to have something different, okay? And I didn't know what that was, but I knew that it didn't involve a lack of love and a lack of compassion and understanding and allowing them to find their way while I stay here. It's like I'm the anchor point. I stay here and they know that they can keep coming back whenever. It's not a problem. And I have my own life, as in I have my own friends. I have my own work. I do my own thing. And they get to know me for who I am. And it's like Chloe said too, it wasn't until they moved out of home that they realised that mum was her own person too. And then that made all the world of difference as well. So I hope some of this helps you along the way. Take what works, throw the rest out, and definitely research different ways. But above and beyond everything else, get creative with solutions, okay? Get creative with how you go about things. Get creative with how you communicate what's happening for you and understanding what they're perceiving, and allow them to be able to say to you, is this what's happening for you? So they can get a handle on what their understanding is of you as a person and how they can. So the communication can simply start with, this is what we've got to do today, this is the routine, this is the hours, what do you need to have done, and get them talking about day-to-day stuff before you get into the emotional stuff as well, okay? And persistence, just keep persisting. With Josh, I had to go back again and again and again and again, and sometimes I beat my head against a brick wall because I'm saying this again, what am I doing that's not getting through? But it was just that it had to take time to change because he was more like his dad. There was stubbornness, there was a whole bunch of stuff, but I believed in him and I believe that we could make it through. And that'll amount for a whole bunch of stuff too. All right, thanks for listening. Leave your thoughts and comments down below. Remember to like and subscribe and share for all the mums that are seeking different answers at this time as well. Okay, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.